telling the truth and facing your fears and staying present, like in the right here and now, and then opening up to love. Those are just good life skills.
The journey of self-mastery is unique to each individual. There is no one-size-fits-all system, and how boring of a world would it be if there was? Each person's journey has the potential to be inspiring, uplifting, insightful, bringing awareness, adventure, peace, balance, and if you're doing it right, a healthy dose of humility as we begin to realize how we show up in the world, the good and the not so good aspects of ourselves. Our journey should be the most exciting adventure of our life if we lean into the challenges, push past our self-imposed limitations, and embrace each day of our lives as if it were our last, with gratitude for every aspect of our lives. Welcome to the most exciting adventure of your life. Welcome to a new way of living, and welcome to the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast.
Hi, I'm Casey.
And I'm Andy, and we're on a mission to inspire and guide 1 million people to live a life of purpose, passion, and self-mastery through the 5 mountains of cutting-edge human development and mental fitness.
Gratitude is defined as an expression of appreciation for what one has, but it also has a social aspect, creating shared emotions that can help us strengthen relationships. It's built into our core as part of our evolutionary history. These feelings or emotions are said to come from the survival value of helping others and being helped in return. Since work and productivity are now the drivers of most adults in today's society, always striving for more, it seems like the human race is moving further away from our roots of gratitude, community, and conversation. Today's guest, Terces Engelhart, along with husband Matthew, are changing the way we think about communication, conflict, and communities in the workplace. Founders of Café Gratitude and Gracias Madre, plant-based restaurants where, pardon the pun, they're bringing to the table gratitude, transparency, and authenticity. Welcome, Terces.
Thank you. Great to be here. Appreciate you guys inviting me.
Absolutely. We're so excited to have you on today. And we'd like to open the show by asking, what are you grateful for today?
Well, right now I'm grateful for you guys. Grateful that there's more people out there pushing forward the possibility and potential of living in a state of grace, which is gratitude. Gratitude and grace come from the same word. So yeah, just super grateful that you two are taking this on and making this a focus for your lives. And yeah, have invited me to share a bit today. So grateful for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Terces, I've had the opportunity to hear you speak at the Unbeatable Mind Experience last year. And after listening to your TED Talk, what comes to mind as we were preparing for our conversation today is calm, peace, love, abundance, and gratitude. But this all came from a lifetime of experience and learning. Would you tell us a bit about your journey and what led you down this path of love and gratitude?
Well, let's see here. So I'm in my 70s, so I've had quite a bit of life experience. And I would say that, my early years, I was a competitive athlete. And, there's a certain aspect of training and discipline and, navigating some of the challenges that life offers, especially as a competitive athlete. And so my early years were formed by that. And I think I developed pretty early on, an attitude of just choosing to be happy regardless of the circumstances. And I think it was just a choice I made. I mean, honestly, as a child, in the 50s, we didn't have a lot of room in our family for emotions that were considered negative. You couldn't really get angry. Now I had 2 older sisters, so no boys in the house. Maybe that would have changed it, but you couldn't get angry. You couldn't yell. And if you were upset, I was usually sent to my room and told not to come out till I had a smile on my face. So, maybe that early discipline actually planted the seed of choosing to be happy no matter what. but I would say that's stuck with me my whole life. And then I dealt with sexual abuse when I was 16 and kept that a secret for 20 years. And then I lived with an eating disorder, although not diagnosed or, not a public awareness of an eating disorder. They weren't in the public view at that time. And so I didn't really know what was wrong or what was going on. But years later, obviously, I discovered what it was, still lived in the secrecy of it. And then after 20 years, started my recovery. So 16 to 36. And during those years, I was married to a military man and had a family. And so I would say, somebody said recently, take your mess and make it your message. And I would say, that was the mess of my life, although people felt like I had an amazing life because, again, I kind of kept up an outer appearance, both for probably survival and my children. And, we didn't have the awareness of some of the trauma that I had experienced or been through as being identified as trauma. And I just made the best out of what I had. That's kind of how I lived my life. And interestingly enough, we just had a family vacation. There's now 25 of us between my husband's children and my children. So 5 children, 5 spouses, and 13 grandchildren. Wow. And I was telling my son, sometimes I'm embarrassed when I hear you talk about your childhood. And he was like, really? Mom, so many people send me young people and I tell them stories and I always give them hope. And so it helped me see it from his perspective. Mm-hmm. So while those times maybe were challenging, we kind of always did the best we had with what we had. And we actually lived a great life and we're happy.
Friends, if what we're discussing today, the 5 domains of cutting edge human development, sounds interesting to you and you want to experience it for yourself, a great place to start is the Unbeatable Challenge. You can try it for free now. There's a link in the show notes, and it's a great way to really jumpstart your 5 domain training and become really clear on your goals for this year and how to crush them. We did this challenge earlier this year, and it was a great way to find clarity and redefine our mission, our purpose. And Casey and I also used it as an alignment piece in our marriage to make sure that we were on the same page. So the link is in the show notes. You can try it for free now. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Take action.
So anyway, so I'd say hardship, definitely. And when you can turn that around, those are usually opportunities. I also think they mask your gifts. I'm of the opinion that addicts are people that have high level of gifting and they are just avoiding being responsible for that. And so sometimes it shows up as addiction.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's how I got here.
Nice. Well, thank you. That's a very powerful story. And I think it's also one that that people can find hope in, people who are struggling. Something that came up for me as you were mentioning that is, it seems as a society, when we bring awareness to different struggles, different types of addictions, whether it's eating disorder or different types of drug abuse or alcohol abuse, there's always this stigma that seems to be attached to it early on. And then there's this evolution as we become more aware as a society that, we really, there's no stigma there, right? It's just life. It's our struggle. It's the human condition, and we move through it. And so I think you sharing your story is a great way to help other people just get some insight into their own struggles in life. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. The interesting thing is, somebody said to me, I have a podcast called Unreasonably Grateful. And somebody said to me, bravo for talking about eating disorders so honestly. Something about like so many people are so ashamed or embarrassed. I think pointing to what you're saying, which is there's this stigma, but hopefully we've come along as more aware human beings to recognize that those concerns or issues, addictions, etc., that many of us deal with are some of the schools where we get our PhDs in life. Now, obviously not everybody gets through those, but and gets to the other side of it. But that doesn't diminish that it isn't powerful life training. You know what? I can't imagine my life without that. And I don't even know necessarily who I'd be. And the foundation of my recovery has been my internal journey. It's where I've learned to, love myself and love others and appreciate myself and appreciate others. And the 4 steps of my recovery are just really basically common sense that perhaps isn't as common anymore. But the four steps to my recovery were: tell the truth, face your fears, stay in the moment, and open up to love. And those were all, guided intuitively from, my spiritual awareness and guidance. For me, that's Jesus, but it could be, obviously, for anyone, they may identify it as something else. And so, telling the truth and facing your fears and staying present, like in the right here and now, and then opening up to love, those are just good life skills. And I think sometimes people who struggle, and there's so much addiction in our culture right now. Look at what became, a handheld device to make our lives more organized and easier. Now it's become an addiction for people, and it's made things available 24/7 that have become addictive to people. I mean, we're just human beings. I think there's always going to be that potential that exists. Everything's got kind of 2 sides to the blade. What can be beneficial can also be used for harm. And so, the life skills that I learned along this journey, I wouldn't trade for anything. And so in some ways I could say I wouldn't trade those years of dealing with addiction for anything. And a lot of good has come out of that. So I think there were years in the early days of recovery where I had more regret or if only. I just don't have that now. It's been long enough. This is my 36th year of recovery. So I don't really have that now. It's not like I look out and see someone else's life and think that life looks somehow better than my own. I don't really live in that place anymore.
That's a great place to be.
I think that comes with age.
Perspective.
You look around, you see people that you admired that have now had their struggles. And, I think it's necessary in some ways. Just like in the early years of athletics, there's a pressure that's put on you to excel. And again, I think handled in a healthy way, that can be really beneficial. And then it can also be detrimental. And so, I think both are true. And our job is to be able to navigate and choose when that is. I mean, I don't know about you. I read the story this morning about Simone Biles, right? Pulling out of the Olympic, part of the Olympic competition. And you have to wonder, wow, how hard would that be for someone who's worked as hard as she has, is as good as she is, and has dedicated as much of her life to gymnastics. And yet you have to admire, there's something going on for her that's yelling louder than the possibility of another gold, and that's her well-being. And we have to, as a culture, I think we have to admire that. So I don't know what her journey will look like, but she's in the process of it. She's in the midst of it. And I know it'll be an extraordinary life that makes a difference.
Absolutely. I hope we, as a society, as a country, support her in her journey instead of criticize.
I do too, because, one of the things I read is the other athletes supported her because, as somebody who competed as a team, when someone pulls out, it impacts other people. But apparently the other athletes were all in support of it. I was super inspired. So I don't know, again, who knows what we read and how accurate it is and what the perspective is, but me too. I hope so too. I hope that this turns out to be her experience of being, loved and accepted and supported, regardless of whether she chooses to compete or not.
something that you said just a little bit ago that really stuck out for me was the concept of self-love. And I think a lot of that goes along with that is what you said about always tell the truth. I think a lot of people can relate to always putting on that front and that face of being positive and, not having any problems. But that's also a face that I feel that we're putting on for ourselves a lot of the time. How important is it to be honest with yourself and accepting of yourself as well in growth and recovery?
Well, I think it's of primary importance, right? It's, you certainly probably know, as do I, people who are struggling with perfectionism. Perfectionism is, it's a clinical diagnosis now. And we used to think, oh, how amazing, that person can do anything and everything and do it so well. And just this morning, a neighbor said, I think I'll just call you Pollyanna. And I was laughing like that is the funniest thing, only because, someone made a comment that I actually felt was a compliment about just how I can usually see other people without judgment. Well, I actually think that's a great skill and gift to have. And I've worked hard to develop it because oftentimes when you're sitting in that place of perfectionism, and I heard it said about Simone on the news today, you're the hardest on yourself, and it's projecting out onto other people. And so that criticism, I think we all have to be able to go in and do the deep work to discover, what does that critical voice need? Now, I've done some work in trauma recovery and family systems, and I've done a lot of work. So I think you have to integrate all those pieces of yourself. So Casey, it's like, of course, whatever voice that is that's criticizing or diminishing yourself, you need to integrate that. That's my view. There are lots of other views. There are views that think you need to eradicate it or get rid of it or whatever. I don't know. My view is you need to find out more about that aspect of yourself and what it needs, and then help it integrate into the rest of who you are, because we're obviously a committee of voices. Most of us who have done any inner work recognize there's a committee that's meeting every day, either for or against our behalf. And it depends on who shows up that day and who speaks up. So we need to do the work to be able to take control of that meeting and make sure that the agenda is one that you're committed to forwarding, and that the direction in which it's going is a direction in which you want to move, and the way you want to develop your family or your community or your city or the world. How are you utilizing this one precious life, and what are you doing with it to further what life looks like on this planet?
Do you have a morning ritual or process to set the stage for that committee, or deciding on who shows up in that committee each day?
It's interesting. I've had lots over the years. I've tried lots of different versions of it. Right now, where I am is I make sure I get to bed early. So I'm not a night person. I'm a morning person, and I know that about myself. So I make sure I get to bed early, and I have exercise that I do, and I'm not so active. I live on a farm and run a farm and milk cows and do all kinds of things. But I get up early in the morning before everybody else. And for me, that quiet time in the morning is where I kind of focus and get centered. And I have, amazing messages I've, invited into my inbox, and I have books and poetry and, a variety of things that I read. So, but I also am rigorous about not putting garbage in any time of the day. I don't watch bad movies. I don't listen to why would I do that? And that helps, what goes in, what comes out. So if you're not putting in a lot of junk, then you don't have a lot of junk that you have to listen to and put out. So I think, garbage in, garbage out. So good, healthy messages in, healthy messages out. And obviously that's not as easy because we have more messaging being delivered into our, environment than ever before. There's an onslaught of messages available anytime, 24/7, 365 from a variety of sources. So you have to select it.
It's a conscious effort.
Right. One of the things
you have to stay awake.
Exactly. One of the things that we actually do on occasion is just take a digital detox break where we head off on an adventure somewhere, and we don't have our phones on, we don't connect to the internet, and we just unplug from that. And I'll tell you what, that process is so powerful in just kind of rebalancing and resetting our mindset. So I would encourage folks to try that every once in a while.
It was one of my grandchildren that showed me that you can see how much time you spend on the screen by looking at screen time on your device. And I actually love that because there's a monitor there to help you, and, I run a business and run a farm, and, I'm always under, 2 hours. So I love that because I don't want to spend the majority of my day tied into, a screen. That's not what I choose to do. I like people, and it's been challenging this year with COVID, right? Because we've been sent to our screens more than ever before and restricted from in-person communication. So, but that's the beauty of podcasts, right? You can you can do a podcast and connect with people and make it succinct and meaningful, and it's been great.
This episode of Fierce Planet Adventures podcast is brought to you by 5 Mountain Coaching, licensed Unbeatable Mind Coaching, integrated accelerated vertical growth across 5 domains of cutting-edge development designed by retired Navy SEAL Commander Mark Devine. Learn the Big 4 skills of mental toughness and resiliency. Discover the 6 pillars of performance. Test your mettle with custom-created crucibles across all 5 domains. Visit 5mountaincoaching.com to schedule your free 1-hour Unbeatable Mind Coaching session. That's the number 5, mountaincoaching.com. Begin your journey to becoming unbeatable today.
On Café Gratitude's About Us page, we were looking over the mission statement, which sounds almost like an ethos. It's really different from a lot of companies. You have values like gratitude, acceptance, abundance. How do you take values like these from concept into action?
That's such a great question. So, okay, we've been in business now, I believe, 17 years because I have a 17-year-old granddaughter and she was an infant. So, it's so many mission statements, in my opinion, are printed and posted and then forgotten. And so our mission statement is alive and it's organic and active. And part of that, Casey, is it has aspects of being. So for people who've never been to Cafe Gratitude, the names of our menus, our affirmations, things like, I am abundant, or I am pure, or I am gracious, or I am kind. And the reasoning for that was when we started this all these years ago, first of all, there was no formal acknowledgement of the power of gratitude. Universities weren't teaching it. The research hadn't been done on it or publicly shared. And so the affirmations are a way to manage that committee in your head. It's like for servers looking at the computer screen, they see a bunch of affirmations. For customers reading a menu, there's a bunch of affirmations. And certainly in the beginning, people resisted that. We got labeled hippy dippy and, all kinds of things, right? And then when you dig in and you ask people, what does that mean? And they're going, oh, it's all about love and peace and kindness. And I'm like, okay, well, that's all right, because I'm not a hippie, but I am committed to peace and love and kindness. So, okay. But again, you always have to be able to hold space for the pushback. The pushback is just an indication that something new, foreign, frightening is being ushered in. And you have to be willing to hold space for that and slowly work away at whatever the resistance is, trusting that over time people will be able to align with it. So, that's how we did it. And so the values in our mission statement are, we believe that if our people fulfill on who they're committed to being, then we've fulfilled on our mission. Our people don't come to work to fulfill our mission. They come to work to fulfill their personal growth and development. That's what they come to work for. And when that happens for enough people, we've fulfilled on our mission. So that's the reason that our mission statement is filled with the ethos of our organization. And how do we do that? Education, training, support, acknowledgement. My husband and I wrote a book called Sacred Commerce, and Sacred Commerce is the tools that we use in managing the business. And then we have a book called Kindred Spirit, which is about relationship. And that's not just interpersonal relationship, but all relationship, familial, business, neighbors, community, as well as, interpersonal or romantic relationships. And we still do that workshop. Like 16 years later, we have an on-farm version coming up late September, early October. And so it's constantly educating and training people and being able to shift their attention to bringing out the best in one another instead of criticizing and judging, and calling people, forward through affirming who they really are, not perhaps who your perception of them is based on circumstances, and being grateful and being kind and being generous and loving people and accepting them where they are. So our business is actually human development inside of the version of a business called the restaurant. We're growing people, and that's true for customers as well as employees. So that's, to answer your question, that's why the mission statement has those kinds of words in them. And it's also how we do that is we don't give up on people. You just keep reinforcing the best of one another, and ultimately that is what rises to the surface.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And having worked in the business world for quite a while, there's so much focus on profitability and bottom line, and in many companies that's the only thing that matters. How does your model, your approach, keep in mind the bottom line but also taking into account the people?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because that's kind of the dichotomy that we see. We're either for profit or not, but we're actually for profit. We're a for-profit business, because if we don't take care of the entity won't even be able to employ people. Mm-hmm. But it's a combination. So we have a four-part bottom line, and part of it is, are we a spiritually fulfilling, just company? Are we profitable? Are we, taking care of the planet? So we look at it as a much bigger perspective, we're a part of a bigger picture. So we're taking care of our people, we're taking care of our business, we're taking care of the planet, the community that we serve. So we're measuring all of those things. And ultimately, when you're doing that, in my view, the money will be there, because mm-hmm. it's what people want. People want to feel like they belong. People want to make a difference. People want to work for an organization that treats them well and buys products in a socially just way. People want to be a part of that. Now, does everybody know? Because just as organizations can be profit-driven, people can be money-driven. And they're just looking for a job that makes them the most money or has the best benefits. We tell people, if that's what you're looking for, we're probably not a good fit. Mm-hmm. But if you're looking to grow and develop and be a better human being, it's probably a great fit. And, we're not talking about you're going to come to work for us and stay working for us forever. It's like a university. You may come in, work, get some great skills and move on and go on and do something else that you're passionate about in your life. That's great. And that being said, we have 17-year employees. So, some people do stay.
Yeah.
So it just depends. We don't have the kind of turnover that's considered normal in the hospitality world. We do have a lot of longevity, and people can move up through the ranks in our organization. We have people who have started, started as a busboy and now are an executive in our organization. So it's possible to move through the ranks because, again, the education and the skill set that we're looking for is, sure, we're looking for the skill set of, restaurant and hospitality, but we're also looking for the skill set of integrity and loyalty and, leadership.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a lot of people become leaders in our organization that when they came to work for us could have easily been considered, underemployed.
Mm-hmm.
So it just, we believe in people.
Powerful. What brings to mind is, or what comes to mind is, having been a hiring manager, interviewing manager at times, we get a whole variety of perceptions or, preconceived notions of people coming into a company to interview. And they don't always show up well or having done their work. So that's when the onboarding process, the vetting process takes place. What does your process look like? Well,
it's changed again over the 17 years. Probably what we did in the early days is probably illegal now, but because you can't ask questions that you used to be able to ask. But,
right.
We're looking for somebody. I mean, unfortunately and fortunately, because of the size that we are now and the number of people that we serve, we're looking for people that have experience in hospitality. Right? Where before we could train you from the bottom up. We had more time and space to be able to do that. And I'm not saying that's not possible, but it's rare. Mm-hmm. And then we're looking for people who, we'll ask them questions like, what gets in the way of you succeeding? Like, we'll ask them those kinds of interpersonal questions in a way that, they can share as deeply or shallow as they want. And obviously what we're looking for is for people who are willing to be more transparent and share and be more honest. And that's kind of our vetting process. And we're just, we're looking for, people who see the opportunity. And let's just be straight. People see that opportunity, they get hired, and 6 months later, they make you wrong. That's mm-hmm. just human being. And you just have to weather that with them. Some people will weather that well and other people won't. But, people get to choose to, grow and develop at whatever rate or level they want. And sure, it's tough, and it's tough in California, I think, more so than other states, because our minimum wage is higher. We don't offset wage with tips. And we have the newer immigrants are in the back of the house, and the previous set of immigrants, which most of us are all immigrants, are in mm-hmm. the front of the house. Mm-hmm. And we're always managing the balance between those two. But again, if our focus is on love and acceptance and appreciation, those can flow freely. There's no limit to them. There's no cost to them. So training people to acknowledge other people and to express what they're grateful for. We do a process called clearing where, we just ask a few questions that helps people get present and appreciative. So I don't know, I guess that answered your question. Sometimes we're successful at vetting well, and sometimes we're not. But ultimately, I think the people we're looking for are people who want to grow and develop and be a part of an organization that's interested in providing an amazing product, doing a great job, excelling in the realm of serving other people, and at the same time becoming the best version of yourself.
Awesome.
Nice.
If you've been listening to our podcast or following us on socials, it's probably no surprise to you that I've been dealing with back issues for many years. And I want to take a moment just to tell you about something that I found that's helped me with my flexibility and durability and mobility. And that's called Kokoro yoga, somatic warrior training. It's not just yoga. It also includes Tai Chi, Qigong, visualization, meditation, and breathwork practices such as Fit Warrior, Fighting Warrior, which incorporates functional fitness and some martial arts movements. And it's been just a really great way for me to maintain some flexibility and durability as I move through our challenges when we go and do Spartan races and climb mountains. So if this sounds like it's something that could help you out, check it out. The link's in the show notes.
Coming from my management, was more customer service driven. Do you find that this model opens up even a bigger door for like customer service for the customer side as well? They're more open and accepting and treating them with respect, as opposed to just as a customer.
I think definitely. It's interesting because sometimes the more you give, the more people want. And sometimes the more you give, the more appreciative they are. And again, part of what we do is hold space for all of that, and our version of being an invitation is, who we are is love and we're here to serve. And sometimes it's easy to do that. And sometimes it's challenging. But if you help people learn when you're challenged, you're probably growing in your ability to be able to be more that in what might be considered less than optimum conditions. So, but yes, we have an amazing loyalty in customers. People come back again and again. We're not the kind of restaurant that you go to once a month. We're the kind of restaurant where you go 3 days a week, because I think people love being in the environment. And I think part of that environment is our people, the space that we've created.
That's beautiful. Your model and how you work with employees and the expectations that you have and the atmosphere you create is pretty unique, right? And I think a lot of us, a lot of people, a lot of workers, when they come into that environment to come and work, it might be a bit of a culture shock. Is there a buy-in period for the employee as well? Do you find, or yeah,
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It's Andrew, consider that how we've organized our lives, each of us, how we've organized our lives is to be safe, to be risk averse, to have comfort, to feel secure, confident. We organize our lives that way. And that's a different organization for each one of us. And so when you come into Cafe Gratitude, where there's more transparency and more openness and honest feedback and collaborative workspace, I suppose one of the first things that comes up for people is suspicion. Can I trust this? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people, especially people in the workforce, have been hurt or wounded or betrayed. And so trust is one of those issues that kind of rises to the surface right away. And our job is to just help people get through that, just be with that and keep going. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Mm-hmm. It's not 100%. And we're also expecting a certain level of performance, so you also have to be able to perform at the same time. It's not like there's not policies and procedures and guidelines and write-ups, and there's all those things that are required to be able to run an efficient and effective business. But I'd say there's a compassionate human element that's blended well with the policies and the procedures.
Nice. So what's coming to mind is, okay, so I show up to work and I'm having a challenging morning, and maybe my energy's off. I'm not in the right headspace. so I come into your environment at Cafe Gratitude. How do I shift that? Do you guys, you talked about clearing, and I'm guessing that has something to do with
Yeah.
helping the transition.
Yep. And the clearing process is simply a couple of questions. We ask a question that's some version of what's in the way of you just being here right now, ready to serve our customers. Some version of that. What's distracting you? The person answers the question. And the reason we can do a clearing is we don't do anything. We just listen, we recreate, which today in the realm of philosophy and psychology is mirroring. We just say back to that person what they said. Mm-hmm. And then we ask them how they feel when their attention's on that. And they share how they feel. We recreate, say back the feelings. And then when they're ready, we ask them another question. That question, some version of, what are you grateful for? That was the original question and the only one we had, but now there's lots. What do you love about your life? There's all kinds of them. And that second question is the grounding question that helps people be present regardless of circumstances. And that's what allows them to be able to show up at work and be in a good headspace and serve. And they know that whatever was bothering them when they came in will be waiting at the door when they go out. But oftentimes, just in the process of clearing, it's shifted. Because when you hear back what you say is bothering you, you oftentimes see either the thing that's bothering you is because of the way that you're focusing on it, or that it's not that big of an issue after all. You've just gotten, dialed into it.
Yeah. As a business concept or model, I think that's amazingly powerful. How much time is wasted or lost? How much productivity is lost when employees come to work and they're focused so much on external, what's going on outside of the workplace, and that's where their concentration goes. So I can see that being so beneficial in any business with any team. But I guess where that takes me then is this business model scalable to larger organizations?
Yeah, I think it is. We've done it for Whole Foods. We've done it for other organizations. Again, you have to be willing to invest in your people. So we allow like 10 minutes for 2 people to clear. And if you multiply that out times whatever number of employees you are, it's a big number. But we know that investment saves us what you were referring to, which is people just not being present, making mistakes, being rude to customers, dropping dishes, cutting themselves, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Because what has customer service be great is you're present with people. And you can't be present with people when you're distracted by whatever the current circumstances of life are. And we all have those circumstances. And so being able to just help people focus on being right here, right now for whatever length of time their shift is. And then, trusting that if they need help, they'll ask for dealing with whatever they might be dealing with. And otherwise, they'll be resourceful about it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we deal with some tough circumstances and hardships, and our people know that, they'll be supported by their community. The relationships that build in our organization are lifelong, and most of the people who work together are also friends.
Completely changes the work environment.
It does. It's a completely different. It does. Yeah.
In the beginning of our conversation, you had mentioned your podcast, and it's the title of your podcast is Unreasonably Grateful, and I just love that. That's just what's wonderful. What inspired you? And for anybody who hasn't checked out your podcast, I encourage you to do it because they're short hits of what I would term as open, honest, heartfelt sharing of life experiences. So the question is what inspired you to Unreasonably Grateful? What was the inspiration there? I mean, it's unique, right?
Yeah. Well, so I've been practicing gratitude really I would say my whole recovery, which is 36 years, but really fully dedicated the 17 years since Cafe Gratitude started. And, it's great to look outside of yourself and count your blessings. Hey, awesome. Most people don't do it. Start. It's amazing. But then there's just grateful for no reason. Like, choose grateful because you're choosing grateful, and it's not backed up by some reasonableness. It's like, be unreasonable and just be grateful anyway. And we see that. You can go to impoverished countries where people have way less than us, and they're grateful people there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not based on circumstances. I remember I had this epiphany. We were in India, and we were riding on the back of a cart, and these kids were chasing us after us, and we were giving away free tennis balls. And I remember having this epiphany, thinking, if those of us who lived in the developed Western world, who have so much abundance, if we would just be grateful for what we have, we would impact life on the entire planet. Because grateful people do different things with their resources than ungrateful people. And so that just really became kind of my mission. My personal mission is, can I just be grateful no matter what? And unreasonably grateful is just what you said. It's just me. It's like, I don't know, the shortest one is maybe 4 or 5 minutes. The longest one is maybe 12. And I do one every week, and it comes out on Sunday. And it's just a little snippet of kind of common sense, general life skills or lessons with a level of transparency to guide people in just getting more out of their day-to-day experience and move a little bit closer to who I believe they were designed to be. So, there's that piece of it. And then I would say for communication, I would say, obviously, follow us on whatever social media and watch for, if you go to belovefarm.com, there's events and registration, watch for our workshops, and you can look up our books. Some of them are out of print, but you can get the audio version. And just communication everything can be resolved in communication. And that's just a big, bold blanket statement. But mostly we don't talk about the stuff we need to talk about to actually get to resolution. And because we stay comfortable or whatever, we don't want to hurt people's feelings. We don't want to get hurt, like whatever, some defense that we live in. And yet, when you're more committed to the resolution and less committed to defending yourself or whatever, someone else or your stuff, anything can get cleared up. And that's the beautiful part, that we as human beings can communicate. And that's, that's like the best of the best, because we all speak and communicate. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Awesome.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. I love what you're doing, and you'll let me know when this broadcast.
Absolutely. Yes. We'll shoot you the link in an email. And I think we're looking at a couple weeks out right now.
Okay, great. Perfect. And then I'll share it as well.
Fantastic.
Very thankful.
When you send it to me.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. Much love and appreciation.
Thank you guys. Yeah, appreciate you. Thank you for what you're doing. Keep it up. Don't quit.
All right.
And thank you for what you do as well. And I just wanted to say again, when we saw you on the VUME, it was super impactful for me and moving forward from where I was then. So
yay!
Really
I love
appreciate you. So
you're so welcome. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day.
You as well.
You as well.
Okay.
Friends, if you found the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast helpful, please consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. It helps others find our podcast.
If you screenshot your review and tag us on Instagram, we'll send you a classic Fierce Planet Adventures sticker. For your water bottle, cooler, car, send us a direct message with your mailing address on Instagram, and we'll send you that sticker right out.
Thanks for joining us, and live fiercely.